Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Big Home Ed Conversations. My name is Kelly Rigg. I'm a home educating mum of two and a qualified mindset and ADHD coach. I'm really passionate about supporting parents and neurodivergent families as they navigate children not okay at school and ultimately then transition from mainstream schooling into home education. I'm here together with my co-host, Ashley Venerio. She's a fellow home ed mum of three and a former primary teacher. And we created the Big Home Ed Conversations podcast together with what began as honest, heartfelt talks around her coffee table with the kids running around us, and has now grown into a space where hundreds of listeners now tune in for real, unfiltered conversations about alternative education mindset and kind of educational philosophies. So we cut through the noise and focus on what really matters to home educating families.
This season, we have been sponsored by Stru, a home educating logging app that's been developed by a home educating mom and her brother. They have given us access to the app, and we're using it to track what we're doing and to share with you just how amazing it is to see if it might work for you and your family, because it's definitely been something we've been enjoying. This week, I have been focusing on the book tracking function. So the app has this ability to scan a book and track that as an activity, which is super helpful if you're looking to track your read alouds, maybe what your kids are individually reading. And I found it's actually even a great way for me to track my pretty big personal library here at home. So, one of the challenges that I've been having is just having a way to remember what books I have at home. I've not kept it a very good secret that I love books and I have a lot of them. And it's one of the things that keeps me on my toes because I'm constantly like, okay, let's say we're studying Australia. Do I have any books on Australia? What kind of fiction books might I have on Australia? Do I have any geography books? Anything about its history? So all of these things come to me when I'm out of the house always. So I'm either at a library or a bookstore and I'm trying to think, okay, do I need something else or do I already have enough? And I have just found that by taking a little bit of time to first create kind of a dummy account on the Stru app. So I set up a child as library. And under that child's activity, I just scan my books and I tag them with a few keywords, whether that's geography or country or just a word like China or history. I can easily then go back and sort through it and see what I have. And this has just already been pretty amazing because it's allowed me to, one, just refresh my memory on what I have. And two, hopefully in the future, allow me not to either over purchase or bring back a million books from the library that I don't actually need. So I've really been enjoying that. If you're using the Stru app along with us here, go ahead and scan a book. You'll see how beautiful it is when that picture of the book shows up in your feed. I know we were talking about feeds last week and just how nice it is to be able to see that activity tracking. And this way you can add your books to it as well. And it's just another great feature that we've been enjoying.
Yeah, it's so nice actually, because I have been using this a little bit myself with my two have both wanted to do a reading challenge this year. They've both started reading really well now. And so my youngest is devouring books. It's so wonderful seeing her go from strength to strength with that. It's just amazing when it clicks, just really, really nice. And she's getting into kind of harder and harder books. And actually, you do forget kind of where they've started and the level they're able to read at a certain stage, and then actually how that develops and changes with time. And I think what I am really enjoying about it is that I will be able to have a look back and see all the books, like if I remember to scan them. Obviously, I'm never going to remember to scan them all, but like trying to scan a reasonable amount of them will help to give me a good baseline over time for how their reading is developing and the kind of complexity of texts they're able to read independently, which is, yeah, just really, really nice. It's a really fantastic feature. That I think is going to be really, really helpful for most home educators. You can download it on iOS and Android, so it's available on both, but you can go find it online as well. If you just search for Stru Home Ed app, it will come up. So go find it, and you can use the code BIGHOMED just to make sure that you're kind of linking it back to where you found out about it. So cracking on with this week then. So we decided at the beginning of this season that we have got various subjects that we maybe dip in and out of, you do the odd thing on, but you never really fully go all in with a topic. And we're quite project eclectic ourselves, and we do tend to follow random threads like this sometimes. But ultimately, there are some subjects that we just never think to cover. And last week we did capital allocation and investing. So that's what we covered on our episode last week. So if you missed that, go back and have a look at that one. It sounds really dry, but actually we had a lot of fun with it and the kids really enjoyed it as a subject. And it's definitely opened up my mind to remembering that they are little people and one day they will have a mortgage and bills and their own bank accounts and stuff to manage. And actually, a lot of us did feel a massive disservice from our schooling around financial education. And even sometimes our parents didn't have an awful lot of information around investing and stocks and shares and pensions and things. Like, not many of us really understood what to do with our money and have had to kind of learn the hard way. And so many of us will end our adult life without a pension and stuff like that as well, like without kind of really good savings. So it's so important for us to be teaching our kids about this stuff and helping them to understand that the earlier they start it, the better a life they get to lead, or the easier life, I suppose, because they can fix the problems that arise for them in life. So yeah, we covered that last time. And then we picked food around the world, which has been our challenge for this week. So me and Ashley are not allowed to talk to each other about what we're doing with our kids during the week because we don't want to give each other ideas. We really want to get a good baseline for where our brains end up going with it as well. So it's really quite fun. I was really excited about this one because I am a foodie. So actually, I love food. And I think you're the same, Ashley, aren't you? I mean, you've eaten in some incredible places, I'm sure, on your travels because you travel a lot more than me.
Yeah, it's the best part of traveling, isn't it? I
Yeah.
I really enjoy it, and it's just a nice way to experiment too with something outside of your comfort zone.
It really is. I think that's one of the things I love the most about traveling as well is just all the different flavors and even just like driving through Sri Lanka, for example, many, many years ago and seeing people selling the pineapples at the side of the road and like a whole town would be responsible for selling pineapples. That would be like every single person in that town would
So
grow the pineapples,
interesting.
cut down the pineapples, sell the pineapples at the side of the road. And ultimately that would then all the money would be pulled back into that community. So they wouldn't like all have an individual wage, they would use that money collectively and stuff like that. It's just really, really fascinating how different groups of people kind of do food differently as well. And
Mhm.
so anyway, so we kind of started off on a bit of a tangent with ours. I was really struggling initially to figure out, do I just want to try lots of different foods with the kids? It's like, I've got two autistic children and trying lots of new foods is not really something they love. And so I was like, maybe not. We can try a little bit maybe, but that's going to be a bit tricky. And my son is massively into the Greeks and Greek mythology and stuff at the moment. And we have tried to do a little bit of Greek food at home. And I was really stumped at first. I was like, there's so many different avenues we could go down. And you mentioned when we were talking about it very briefly at the end of the last session to kind of like starting to plan our thoughts around it, about
Mhm.
remembering to look at this from the state of like poverty as well and famine and how difficult food is to get hold of in certain parts of the world as well. And it isn't all about fun and flavors. It is about kind of how we're obviously keeping different industries alive and even processed foods and all the rest of it. There's so much you could do with this subject that I did get a little bit like, at first. Did you have anything that you kind of initially landed on, or did you have that same kind of, there's so many different avenues to go down here?
Exactly. So initially I thought, okay, we're going to be like trying staple foods from all around the world and just expanding our palates. And then I thought, you know what? This is going to get messy. And we already had a lot of evening commitments. And I feel like we do our best cooking sort of towards the back half of the day into the evening. And I was just thinking, this is not going to actually pan out the way I think it will. And like just getting to the grocery store this week to get supplies will be a challenge.
Hmm.
So I quickly shifted gears. And amazingly, we had a field trip planned for the day after we recorded. And I did not know this, but when we arrived at Earth's Trust, which is up in Reading, it's a site where there was previously a Roman settlement. And so there's a lot of excavation that goes on there. It's archaeologically very important. And what's really interesting is it was built on top of a village from the Iron Age. And so as they excavate, they find a lot of similarities, but differences between the two different settlements that were there. And one of the aspects that they talk about is food and the types of foods that the Romans brought and introduced to England.
Hmm.
And the kids got to look at them and sample them, things like rosemary and plums
Hmm.
and just different things that previously had not been in this country. And then they talked about how the foods that were used in the Iron Age were very different, even though they had the same resources available.
Hmm.
So they didn't eat the same meats. They didn't eat chicken in the same way, even though they had hens and things. So it was really, really interesting to see how you can get all this detail about our history and our history around food from looking at the various artifacts that come out when you basically dig into the earth.
Hmm.
So that was really cool and kicked us off in saying, okay, gosh, what other foods were not in this country? How has food migrated over time? And how is that interwoven into the history of our world, essentially? And that's where we ended up starting. We did not end up there. We definitely meandered through our week and kind of touched on a lot of different topics, a lot of which, interestingly, we did talk about at the end of the last podcast as we were brainstorming, which I thought was kind of funny. So here I was thinking like, oh yeah, gosh, this has really taken us down a path. But actually I was like, oh, maybe I somehow like subconsciously inspired this path because
Mhm.
we did start to talk about these ideas on our last podcast. So yeah.
That sounds really interesting. That sounds like such a fascinating day out as well. And it is lovely when these things are kind of when our kids get inspired by something that's actually like that they're doing right now physically, they're experiencing
Yeah.
something, seeing something, that it really comes home so much more than anything that could be done remotely, I find. But yeah, mine has taken a really random, eclectic kind of I'm not sure it necessarily followed a specific path, but we did find ourselves also actually managing to get out and do something. We had already planned it as well from ages ago, but we basically did a junior keeper day at Hobbledown. And I will give
Ah.
this a shout out because honestly, like it's not cheap, but it's also incredible value. My kids got to go spend 2 hours or 2.5 hours in the end with the staff. We had a lovely lady take us around called Jess. And essentially, they got to feed whatever animals they wanted to feed. We had to catch the crickets and the locusts in the sort of food storeroom and put them in a pot to take and feed live to the monkeys and to the lemurs and like all sorts of things, right? It's just absolutely cool. The coolest thing ever. And as we were going around, she was obviously explaining where these animals come from and the kind of foods that they would get naturally in the wild. And it did start a conversation around like temperate climates. And obviously, in hotter climates, you tend to get a lot more kind of fruit, that variety of fruits and this, that, the other, right? So lots and lots of really interesting subjects. And obviously, just really, again, engaging because they were there and doing it and asking questions and seeing what kind of foods they ate. And obviously in the process getting to see a really cute little baby capybara is absolutely what everybody wants these days. They are the animal of the year, aren't they? But anyway, it was really good fun. But we started off our main kind of like first schooly thing, I guess, that we did is we've got a globe and we sat down with a globe and we had a bit of a chat about where people originated from. And I was really grateful because we did the Stone Age a little while back, not that long ago, maybe about a year ago. And they'd retained an awful lot of it, actually. It helped me to kind of realize how much of it they'd remembered about where humans originated from, how we managed to travel around the world, how we would have migrated to kind of keep food available, like fruits and grains and animals. We wouldn't have stayed in one place. Um, where it's colder on the planet, so like where we would try and go when it's in the colder months, that sort of thing. That they're really fascinating how much they could actually understand about the planet, the seasons, the way that the Earth is, like the types of climates, the type of environments and habitats you'd find in those different areas. Like I was really, really pleased to see how much of that they knew and had managed to pick up from all the various stuff we've done before. So that was really lovely. But actually, it led to a really great conversation around. We picked three main grains, so corn, rice, and wheat. Obviously, there's so many others, which I didn't realize how many different types of grains there are actually. We did like a grain word search that I found online, which made me kind of go, oh, wow, I've never even heard of like half of these. So that's going to be really interesting. We're going to hopefully try some of them. We're going to see if we can get hold of some of them and try them. But ultimately, we talked about wheat and the kind of climate that it grows in, rice and corn. And we watched, like Maddie Moats. She's normally on TV. She's the one who does like a sort of like how things work. She's got some really lovely YouTube videos that are kind of her YouTube videos. And she has some like rice paddy fields and stuff like that from Bali. And that was really lovely because I went to Bali for my honeymoon. So I was able to explain to the kids about what it was like actually being there and that we got to see some of that too. And like it was really lovely actually kind of sharing some of our past with them as well. But yeah, that all kind of led into a really great conversation around why people rely on those kind of grains now and how as we settle down into agriculture, like this is what happens. So anyway, so that turned into a really fascinating chat and was definitely one of the main kind of chats we had. But it was really great to kind of see them engaging with that and actually give them a chance to kind of tell me all the stuff they knew about the planet and how our seasons work and everything. That was really lovely.
We did a similar thing. So after we got back from that exploration day, which was super fun, we listened to a podcast that was not aimed at children, I would say. There's a gentleman, fascinating, wealth of knowledge, but not for primary school children in terms of interest. The subject matter was perfect, but the interest wasn't
Delivery.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was like, guys, we are going to muddle through this because it is fascinating. So yeah, not the best delivery for primary children, but it was a shorter podcast and he just talked about how where you live in the world influences what you eat. And it went into the types, just like you were saying, the types of grains or different foods that are grown based on whether you're in South America or England or China and why these things are the way they are. So I thought that was super fascinating. And then what we're in the process of doing, we have not completed it yet, but I printed out a map of the world and we are going to shade the regions by their primary agricultural food source. Like
Mm.
what is their main driver? And then similarly, obviously a huge part of his conversation was about climate, and just availability. And so even
Mm.
went into soil and how much soil impacts what's grown. And
Yeah.
these are things that once he said it, I thought like, oh yeah, absolutely, of course. But like, it didn't immediately come to my mind. It's not
Mm.
something I would have thought to talk to my kids about soil because that's not my primary. I'm not, I have a not, I do not have a green thumb, people. My husband, we met, nicknamed me the orchid killer because I could
Aw.
not keep these things alive. I've since watched a lot of YouTube videos on how to keep orchids alive. So I'm up for improving, but I will tell you, like, soil did not even occur to me. But once he said it, I was like, yes, of course. So I thought that was really interesting.
Mm.
Obviously, biomes and all this make an impact too. So that was kind of the first place we started. And then we're going to have this map that shows us just the world essentially, and obviously then helps to point out, like, relationships to the equator and all of that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was a good place to start, and we sort of found ourselves there as well.
It's so great, isn't it? I think it's so interesting because I think subjects like this as well are the kind of subjects that I like because food can quite literally encapsulate everything. We did an activity this morning, which I was trying to think of the last couple of things I could do before we came on and recorded. And we did a thing about food miles this morning. And we were talking about the different food groups that we had for our breakfast. So like we had eggs, we had sausages, we had some toast with butter, had a selection of foods. And we had a look at the packets, found it very difficult to know from the packets where some of the stuff came from. Like some of the stuff had the address, but not all of it. Then we had to research where it typically comes from, try and calculate the food miles. Then we kind of had a look at like just for our breakfast, just our breakfast. Shocking, absolutely shocking. I almost feel embarrassed to say how much kind of like carbon emissions would have come from
Mm.
just that meal. Like the equivalent of something like boiling the kettle 20 times, which is
Yeah.
just shocking, like absolutely shocking, and led to a really great conversation about eating local and trying to eat foods which are grown locally and reared locally, so that at least it's like it's not had to travel so far and is being done in a sustainable way, and being really mindful of this stuff that actually we don't realize sometimes the impact our foods are having on this planet, and how damaging they are to the habitats of certain animals, like the mass
Mhm.
farming. I mean, you could
Our
even
own
get into
habitat.
like, yeah, like you can even look at things like
Mm.
apples. Like 50 years ago, the nutrients that were in one single apple grown in the UK and versus like what it is now because of the fact that we are essentially killing our soil. That soil does need to have these kind of crops which have like grasses, for example, help to lock in all the bacteria that help to take in the nitrogen. And without those things there, the soil actually dies. And so we have to pour all
Mhm.
these fertilizers and stuff into it to try and make it do it, but they don't stay and they just leach away, which is destroying our rivers. And it goes on and on and on. It's terrifying when you actually start to look at this, and realize the damage that agriculture is doing to our planet, in every part of the planet as well. It is quite shocking. And I think it led to a really important conversation with them this morning around like food does migrate and we get all these lovely, interesting foods and we can import them and we can taste them. And it's so exciting to get to have them. But actually, ultimately, Like, I think we did a calculation once years ago about how many bananas like we as a family imported in a year, and like how shocking a number that is. And it's like, oh gosh, it's so bad. Like once you start to really look at this stuff, it is actually quite scary. Um, so yeah, that was a really interesting one this morning that really opened my eyes as well to the impact of our food choices.
We got to that part as well before we got there, after kind of talking about how food is across the world. We then, guys, I love podcasts. I mean, we're recording one now. I listen. So what do? We listen to another podcast. This one was about a hunger relief effort. So it was about a food bank in the States. And I am just so, you can find podcasts on everything. There's a food bank that runs a podcast about how they run their food bank. And I'm just like,
Hmm.
this is so incredible and information I would never know or understand if that podcast didn't exist. So it was very interesting. And the point of the one we listened to was it had hired a new director. And it was just basically talking about how this is a sourcing director, how this food bank gets their food, their donations from across the state. And I thought this was so incredibly interesting and led to a lot of really good conversations because they got 95% of their food is donated, which is an incredible amount. They only have to purchase 5%, which they get through like financial donations. But when you have a company like Costco, as an example, because we have that here in the UK as well as in the States, when they have food that's past its sell date or close to past its sell date, they can arrange to have it donated to these food banks. But then there's the logistics of like, okay, well, is Costco delivering that food? Do we have to go get that food? Is that food requiring refrigeration? Because now I need to book a refrigerated van. And all of this effort that goes into actually just getting a bunch of food from point A to point B, but
Hmm.
then also allowing for variety. So they talked about how farmers actually have components within this state. I'm sure it's the same across the country, but how in this particular state, farmers actually have plots that's called grow to donate.
Hmm.
So they're growing these crops knowing that they are going to be donated. And so the food banks know relatively when they're going to get these deliveries because obviously the farmers keep them updated.
Hmm.
And so again, it's arranging things, but like if you get like a million ears of corn, you can't just keep feeding corn. People are going to get bored. So how do we spread this out across the state? How do we make it available, to the various partners and what does that look like? And so it was super, super interesting. They're even talking about this app that they're developing or that they're going to be using. I'm not sure if they're developing it, but that is going to allow them to obviously not for someone like you and me, but for different organizations like restaurants and shops to be able to go in and log the food that they have and it will automatically populate that they need a pickup. And so just like the
Yeah.
automation of this effort is just incredible. I just found it so fascinating to understand how much goes into this. And then the statistics around in this particular state, 1 in 6 people don't have adequate food. And so 1 in 6 people are needing supplementation through things like a food bank and other efforts in the state. And we had just come from this event and I said, okay, how many people were there? 30 of us. So how many of us at that event, if we were a sample of a population from this state, would be needing to go to a food bank? So this is a very real thing. It's not just happening in one
Hmm.
part of the world, it's happening all over. But
Yeah.
then this led to the conversation of, okay, but is it different in different parts of the world? And so that is the next like map activity that we're doing is to
Yeah.
track hunger relief and not just how it is locally, either in the United States or here in England, but where is it? What does it look like across the globe, and where are pockets where it's more intense?
Yeah.
Um, so that I thought it was just so interesting. Like I never would have thought. Let's see how they run a food bank. So it was super interesting.
Yeah.
And then what we did, we went to the grocery store and we specifically found the food drop for donations here locally.
Hmm.
And it's something that we've looked at, but I don't think I've ever spent any time actually like reiterating what it's for. And so we did that so they all saw like how there is efforts even here to collect and support food for hunger relief. And then, of course, listen to another podcast, this one about the quality of our food and does the quality matter when
Mm,
you're choosing something to eat? So this kind of gets into what you were talking about because it really stressed around that effort of like food to table, 0 kilometer, however you want to call it, but just that the quality over the quantity of your food is really
mm,
important and where you might want to spend more money because it might make a difference, but that ultimately, if you're paying attention, you probably won't spend much more than you would anyway. You just have to be cautious of like where the allocation is going,
yeah.
but like that it might make an effort to look at local farm options. The
Mm,
average, this is in the States, the average time it takes to get an egg, like when you buy eggs at the grocery store, they were laid 77 days ago.
oh God,
77 days.
that's shocking.
So it is shocking. And I know it's different than England because we do refrigerate the eggs in the States. And so I'm sure the shelf life, but I don't want to eat an egg that was over 2 months old. Like, that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
And so that led to the conversation of like why we buy our eggs locally. And even if
Mm,
it's slightly more, these eggs were laid in the last week or
yeah.
maybe even that morning, depending on where you pick them up. And so that is just so important. And then it talked about the importance of how a farm has like varied crops. And this gets back to you were talking about like soil dying and all of this.
Yes.
That
Okay.
like,
Rotate the soil.
yeah, exactly. And like if you
Yeah.
have like if you only grow corn, that's all you grow, and you're not also growing like tomatoes and strawberries and like, rotating your crops throughout the season, like some of these smaller farms, they just have the better nutrients because of
Mm,
the way that they're managing versus just having one thing in their, obviously they rest the fields and have that rotation, but it's
yeah.
it's not as good. So really just to focus on quality, which I thought was really interesting. And so what we're doing out of that is just constantly making an effort to find local farms to support. And I thought this another aspect that they said, which I thought was really interesting, is about how you can think about the profits from your purchases and where those profits are going. So obviously in the States, it's probably a little bit different than here, but ultimately the same. If you're buying food from a grocery store and your grocery store is headquartered, like the main grocery store is in another state, that all those profits are driving towards that state.
Yes.
So if you're not actually feeding your local economy, the same way as if you were buying from a local farm that is in your region,
Yeah.
because all that money is staying within your area. And
Yeah.
so it just talks about how that's an important thing. And so that led to a conversation kind of from our last week's topic around, finances and how where you spend your money does matter and
Mm,
keeping your area, um, keeping the wealth in your area.
yeah.
And
Keeping
so there was
local
just
industry alive too, right? Like helping to
yeah,
keep businesses alive and keeping
absolutely.
things going, keeping jobs available.
Yeah, absolutely. And how that ultimately does matter. Like it does impact the quality of your food. Like you want
Mm,
to be able to buy your groceries that were, the carrots that came from the, the couple streets down. You don't want to buy your carrots, as you were saying, from even another country if you don't have to, because there's a whole host of things that go with that, carbon emissions and yeah, all of that.
yeah.
So, and the food's just not as good by the time it gets to you. It's not as fresh. So I thought that was
No.
really interesting. And we kind of meandered through as we, as we went.
It sounds like you've covered some really, really good, like intensive sort of subjects as well, then, and really opened their eyes because, as I say, some of this stuff we don't even necessarily talk about or think about very often. Like every now and then you might get, I don't know, like you might make the odd comment being like, guys, look, there's people starving in the world. Please appreciate what food we've got. Like, please don't throw it, like take one bite, be like, nah, I just don't fancy that now, and just chuck it on the side to go horrible. Like, cover it up, put it in the
Hmm.
fridge, eat it later. Like, please don't waste it. Like, this stuff costs money, and it's obviously food has gone up in cost around the world just astronomically in the past few years as well, with everything that happened with COVID and then everything that's happened with Ukraine and all of it. Just the costs are just going up and up and up, and ultimately we can't
Yeah.
afford to waste food. And obviously, when you do look at the sort of the health of, and you say the areas of the world that are really struggling and looking for food desperately, It is such a shame how much is wasted in sort
Mhm.
of us bigger Western countries, and how much is really just going to landfill.
Yeah, I mean, I feel this way about clothing too. That's a whole nother topic, but yeah, 100%. And so
Yeah.
I think the pieces that we haven't gotten to yet, but we started, we haven't finished. We started talking about and this is you were mentioning. I love how our tracks kind of lined up. We were talking about the food impact on the planet. So we started to talk about global warming and climate change.
Mhm.
There's, I think it's called Curiosity Kids. I have to verify this, but there is a pretty popular kids podcast that covered this topic. And we listened to that, and that's always a fun one because there is, again, like a child on the podcast. So it helps to just have the kids hear that and they stay engaged. So that was a really good one. And then what we're going to continue from there is talking about different diets and why people choose different food lifestyles. So, vegetarian, veganism. I mean, obviously, there's a million, maybe not a million, but there's plenty of reasons why you might choose that diet. And one of them certainly is impact on the planet.
Mm.
And so, we're going to talk about that. We are going to talk about food evolution. So, how food has changed in history. This is something that sort of when we launched this with our conversation around Roman influences from that field trip we did, I wanted to come back to that. So I want to come back to that now that we've done a little bit more research and just really talk about how food has changed throughout history and just weave that in a little bit as we go forward. So as we do our history, I want to pull in that food aspect. And I think probably we'll have to rely on some internet searches and AI to help get some details around that because it's typically not covered in anything you read in terms of like history books and conversations like that. So I thought that would be
Mm.
interesting as sort of an ongoing thing. And then I want to talk about the social aspects of food. So I think food and eating is something that is very, very social in most cultures
Mhm.
and is very different. Like the types of food that Italians eat to celebrate are different than Americans and throughout all different cultures. And so obviously there's religious aspects to food. So certain
Mm.
religions don't want you to eat certain foods for different reasons. I think it's just very fascinating. And so that is definitely something that we're going to look into and maybe how even like eating at different tables, separating men from women potentially and children
Mm.
and things like that over the course of history and even today, I think could be really interesting. So those are kind of the things that we're going to be continuing. Basically, the impact of food on the planet, the evolution of food and the social aspects of food. And then we're still going to follow up with our map work. So
Nice.
completing like the biomes and where food is popular based on the region that you're in, what they typically tend to grow. And then just ongoing efforts to focus on local and like quality over quantity of the types of foods that we buy. So yeah, that was a good week.
Sounds really good. And I think it's interesting, like, to listen to kind of how you have covered it. It makes me think as well about like the types of delivery that we tend to do. That I know that my kids particularly are quite receptive to us just having a chat over breakfast like we were this morning
Yeah.
and just talking about something, or we grab the Globe and a book and we might watch a YouTube video, and it tends to be a bit kind of just follows their questions, and they just, as they talk to me
Mhm.
about it, we just kind of follow it wherever it goes. I don't do an awful lot of like sitting at the dining table necessarily, kind of this is specifically um exactly how this is going to go over the next hour, but I certainly normally have a point or a
Mhm.
starting place, and then we just sort of like see where it takes us. My kids also really enjoy listening to stuff. I've never really managed to get into podcasts, but I think it's mostly because I'm just not brilliant at searching for the right ones. So I'll definitely look into the ones that you've mentioned and hopefully have a listen to those with my kids and see what they think of them. Because I would like to listen to more podcasts, but sometimes I find it quite frustrating when I'm searching through them trying to find one that's got the right tone or the right kind of yeah, the right content, etc. It can be quite tricky to find the right one, so that's a talent in and of itself. Once you get the hang of it, it's probably fine, but it is frustrating, I guess. Sometimes you try and listen to them and be like, actually no, that's not really what I was looking for. um
We do that. It's trial and error. We listened my kids
yeah.
will tell you that I'm like, "Next, next.
Yeah. Bless
This
them.
is not what I wanted." Like,
But I also
sometimes the
found
description isn't close at all.
No, exactly. And I think, like, with my two as well, they quite enjoy stuff that's quite interactive. So if it allows them to still move around, if it helps them to kind of like be experiencing things. So we got a load of spices out. Like well, my husband accidentally ripped the door off of our spice cupboard recently. Just one of our big kitchen cupboard doors. He was just accidentally pulled it off its hinges. So
Just
it's been
He-Manned it right
sat in
off.
my living room with all the spices in the rack, like just for like weeks whilst we try to get around to actually put it back on the wall. It's just one of those jobs that's not quite been happening. Um, and anyway, so they were right there, and I was like, "Oh, I know. Why don't we just have a smell of some of these spices?" And like, we just literally just opened the jars and just had a sniff, and then we talked about where they came from, what we used them for, and um, like they really enjoyed that. They were like, "Oh, that smells really horrible. Oh, that smells really strong. Or oh, that smells spicy. Or that smells like really acidic." Or like in all these different lovely
Hmm.
descriptive words. And that was literally just for fun. Like we literally just sat there messing about, like looking at them all and smelling them all. Um, and yeah, I think it's just really, really nice kind of doing sort of semi-interactive things, playing with the globe, having a chat about it, um, doing a word search. They both love a word search. Um, Often we would go to the library. So if we were doing this topic for longer, and I think what I want to stress as well to people is that ultimately this nowhere near done, like nowhere near done. There's so much that could be done and said about and covered, and stuff that Ashley said I'm definitely going to look into mine as well about the food banks and stuff. I think there's one that is actually local, like just up the road, at a local church. And so there might be something we can go and do with them, like
Yeah, I
go and deliver some stuff on the day and
yes.
look
Ideally,
around and
we
talk
would
to
do
them.
that.
Um,
Exactly.
so many
Yeah.
great subjects to cover there, and obviously we haven't necessarily covered in enough depth anyway. We have talked about it a couple of times, but it's always it can be quite scary sometimes, the thought of sort of bringing up conversations around sort of famine and people starving and like massive food shortages and things like that in certain parts of the world, because it isn't necessarily always a subject that feels very, very easy to cover. Like we don't, like we've got young children. I mean, mine is still relatively young. You don't want to necessarily upset them too much, but also children their age can
Are
become
dealing with it.
activists, and they're, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, also, yeah, they're living it and they're experiencing
Mhm.
it and they're going through it. And so ultimately, whilst it's not pleasant to hear about it, it's much worse to experience it. And ultimately, if we know something about it, then we can do something about it.
Yeah.
And if we don't teach them and show them or just like give them an opportunity to learn about it in their own way, then they're not going to know it exists. And I think that's what some of this is about, is trying to help to open their minds and make them realize that there is a whole wealth of subjects and thoughts and people and issues in the world, like problems to solve and stuff to be aware of, to just really expand their minds. And I mean, I'm racking my brains now trying to think if there's anything else we did. I know we did do some other things. It's mostly stuff I want to do. Like there's a restaurant near
Yeah.
us called the Greek Vine, in Wallington, I think it is. It's about an hour from us. It's not very close anymore. It used to be a lot closer. I went about 20 years ago, but they do like Friday, Saturday nights. They do like what's essentially a Greek party night. So they do all the music and the dancing, and
Oh,
they smash the plates, and like you get this like Greek party meze menu, so you get to try all of the lovely Greek food. And it's really good value. It's only something like £24 an adult and £14 each for
um,
the kids. And just like, that's actually a bargain for going out for dinner these days. So we are
yeah.
going to go and do that for our anniversary in May, which will be really, really fun. So we're going to go and have a great night out and enjoy that with the kids. And it'll be totally on the right track of what my son's interested in as well at the minute. He's
Nice.
like, we get to go smash plates. I'm just like, yeah, I hope they still do that, because that was really fun last time. It was really good.
Yeah.
But there's so many lovely kind of restaurants and stuff that would allow you to be quite immersive into the culture and into the food. And like, I mean, honestly, the idea of taking my children to like an Indian restaurant or something just makes me laugh, because there's like nothing they would probably eat on that menu. My youngest would just order plain rice.
Yeah.
She'd just eat rice. It's like, why am I out for dinner in this amazing place? They're literally just eating rice. They might eat some of the bread as well, I suppose. But yeah, no, it's just super frustrating. So it's not really worth it as a kind of a proper meal out thing. But it's still nice to experience the smells and the environment and maybe the music and like all that sort of stuff as well. So even if they did only end up eating plain rice, maybe like a taste of a curry, then it's still
Yeah.
something, right? Like it's still really important to get those experiences. So we'll try and do that. I'll try and be brave. Okay, I will try and be brave. I'm actually wasting my money. We'll go out and try some different things. But yeah, I think it's a great subject, and it's something which, as we've kind of demonstrated, could go in a million different directions. You could come at it from just a really fun, explorative sensory experience. You could come at it from a very kind of historical and geographical kind of perspective. But that's, as I say, what I was going to say earlier is I really love about subjects like these is that you can quite literally cover every single subject. If you want to refer to them as subjects like maths, English, science, etc., like all of it blends into
Mhm.
this kind of subject. You can quite literally do a bit of everything that helps to give them context and concepts to understand and ideas, and did a bit of maths and a bit of science and all sorts of different stuff. There's sensory play, you can explore all kinds of different things with them. So
Yeah.
it's really, really fun, and I think is something which is well worth doing. So if you haven't been following along yet, maybe this is a good one to start with. The capital allocation one was a bit harsh as a first subject, wasn't it, really? But
Yeah, well, to be fair, we had one listener give a great podcast recommendation that you and I hadn't found, so we can share that in the blog as well. But I think that the participation is helpful too because you guys are finding stuff we're not finding, which is
yeah,
awesome. And
millions of things
we
out
can,
there.
yeah, and I love how we can take this in so many different directions. It can let us have a little fun instead of staying within the lines of following a math curriculum or following a language arts curriculum. And
Yeah,
like you were saying, not be taught just at the table in a way that can be a bit dry. So
yeah,
yeah, I mean, we're listening to podcasts in the car. We're, thinking about things as we're going through our daily routines of grocery shopping. And
yeah,
I love that it feels very practical.
yeah.
So yeah,
I was
let's
going to
see
say,
what's next.
I feel like my kids are humoring me at the moment, but what typically they get to choose the subjects, so they will just tell me what they want to do next, and so we just follow whatever they're into. But this is kind of the first time we've done it where I am being like, right, this is the challenge, we need to talk about this week. But they are being really receptive to it, and who knows, one of these subjects might turn into something they want to go even deeper into. So
Yeah.
um that's kind of the hope, right? So I guess that's what
Yeah.
we're trying to achieve here, is to open their minds. So we have, I need to pick a new one now because like we're not exhausted enough at this point. I reckon we're going to manage like half a season of this game. Then we'll be like, okay, can we have a break now, please? Um, I have got an extra bonus session that I'm recording with a lady called Jen Hodge at some point, where we're going to be talking about obviously the children's wellbeing in school bill, which obviously all of us are
Yes.
absolutely gutted about. But she's going to come and talk to us about that, and possibly a bit about the Sen bill as well. So we will get a break. We will get a week of reprieve at some point where we can take a moment between subjects.
Catch up.
But okay, all right, let's pick another one, shall we? Oh, another good one. Lesser known sports.
Okay.
Oh, this is going to be so much fun. I love stuff like this because when I thought of that one, it was literally just like, I bet there's some really great sports that are played in this world that we know nothing about, that actually like are played in like, I don't know, the deepest, darkest tribes somewhere out in the middle of nowhere. Like, I wonder what kind of things are played or done. Like, when you're watching like the Olympics and you see people doing a sport, you're like, that's a sport? Like, I'd never even heard of that before.
Olympics. Like this is the thing. Why are we not all learning curling
I know, right?
as we grow up? Like why is this just how do you get to this Olympic level? There's probably so much potential that's never tapped into because people don't have the opportunity. Like this seems ridiculous.
And it looks really fun too, right?
Oh
My
my
son, for
gosh. Yeah.
example, really wants to do fencing. Um,
Yeah.
so I was just like, okay, we can try and find you some fencing. It came up as a conversation about we're going to Centre Parks in a few weeks' time, and on the list was fencing. He's like, oh, that looks awesome. Just like, you literally spend your forest school day every week fencing with your friends with sticks, like 100%. You'd probably be brilliant at it. So yeah, I think there's some really
Yeah.
good ones out there that we could probably have some fun with this.
Hmm.
Hopefully, we'll get us out and be a little bit active. But also, there must be some really great YouTube videos of people doing some really cool stunts. You ever seen those guys who like bike down mountainsides at breakneck speeds? Quite literal
Yes, because
breakneck
I watched the
speeds.
bloopers.
Oh God, I didn't think I'd be able to do that.
Like where suddenly they're going and then they make a turn through a bush and it's just like a drop off and they're like, "Woo."
Oh
I'm
gosh,
like, oh my
no way. I think these things
gosh.
just give me anxiety.
Oh my gosh,
Um,
my palms start sweating watching the like TikTok. I'm like, okay, like I am in a state of panic and I'm sitting at my kitchen table.
these people are nuts. There's a guy who's doing like it's like he just like climbed to the top of like a really high hill, strapped his dog, like his dog wanted to go apparently, like this is on the other
I've
side,
seen this.
strapped his dog
Yes.
to his body, um, and then like jumps off and does like,
Yeah,
you know, that when they've got like the wing suits, like
Yes,
he's
let's do
doing that and
this.
then just like parachutes down, and gradually I'm just like, okay. But apparently like the guy said
You
he
see
used
your
to
dog
take up
doing
his,
that?
oh God. My poor little Bailey Boo. There's not a way. He literally he shivers at the thought of going outside for a wee, let alone something as terrifying as that. But apparently, this guy used to go out with his friend, and they used to like the dog was like, desperately trying to jump off the cliff after him, and so they're like, maybe he wants to go too. It's like, no, he just wants to know where his dad's gone. His dad just jumped off a cliff. Honestly,
Doesn't
so
want to
yeah.
go.
To be honest, I would say like neurodivergent kids. My son is like autistic ADHD. That kid is bonkers, and I'm not entirely sure that I need to show him that there are sports where you can jump off cliffs.
We'll stay away from those ones.
Oh goodness me, he's definitely going to want to take that up. But yeah, I mean, people who go do those things clearly have like a desperate need for adrenaline. But yeah,
Mhm.
I'm quite curious about this one. There must be some really good ones, so we'll do a bit of research to see what we can do with that. But yeah, it should be fun.
Amazing. I love it.
But yeah, if you guys have got any questions or you want to kind of find out more about what we've been up to, we are going to be doing a blog that attached to each of these episodes. So by now you should hopefully see an episode blog for the first one up on our website, which is bighomedpodcast.com. And essentially we'll give as many different bits that we did as possible, give you the links to whatever we used, and hopefully then you can either recreate it easily or you can use it as a jumping off point to go and find other things that you think that your kids would enjoy doing. And remember to just have fun with it. Like don't feel like you have to cover loads, and certainly don't feel like you have to try and do it all in a week. We absolutely will not be able to maintain all these things. Like doing so many different subjects all at once like that is a lot. Yeah, it's a lot of
Yeah,
pressure to
just
be
fun.
trying to live like this week on week. Like this is not normal. Like we're not like
Mm.
is anybody out there who's new to home ed, you do not have to have this massive great whole topic to cover every single week. This is not normal behavior. This is fun, but it is hard work. So definitely take it easy and just go gently with it. So no pressure to anybody out there. But I hope you will have a wonderful week, and we'll see you again next time.
You've been listening to the Big Home Ed Conversations podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Big Home Ed Podcast for updates. Also, check out our new website at bighomedpodcast.com. We'll be back next week to talk about our experiences bringing the topic of lesser-known sports to our children. We hope to hear your experiences as well, so come talk to us about it on social media. Thanks for listening.